one of the main things that took place this week was I was invited to be a guest on the Kind of Funny Xcast, and I think that was episode 39. And I think that was amazing. That was amazing. I like everything about it was amazing. Okay, it's just watching because you have to see, like, you have one way of doing your production stuff, right? And then you're like, this is cool, okay? And you believe that your production stuff is great. And you're like, everything is on point. I have all these things. I have all these transitions and all these things going on, right? You know, I have all my levels right? You know, I have all my panels looking great, right? And then you go to the mothership, okay? That is the Kind of Funny world, okay? And just tell you, the way they have things set up over there, it's super inspiring. Because I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I was already nervous going in. Okay, so this is the other part about it too, right? So I was already nervous about it going in because I'm like, it's I've never been on the platform before, and I'm wondering, like, what you know, you got the butterflies and you're trying to work through that, and how do you prepare for something that you kind of know that you're going to be talking about, but you're not sure how you're going to be talking about it, and you kind of have an idea what the topics are going to be, but you don't necessarily know how you're going to address the topics, right? So I'm like sitting here and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, I'm really like bugging out right now because I'm nervous. And I'm like, well, it's a podcast, but it's a video show, it's a podcast. And I'm like, well, I've done these before, but it's not the same. And that's the point, right? The point is it's not the same. So yes, I've recorded shows before. Yes, I've done podcasts before, but that platform is on a whole nother level of production value, of just what the expectations are. PKE Entertainment, thanks for coming through. I appreciate that. Just talking about the Kind of Funny Xcast that I was on this week, episode 39, and just the way they have everything set up over there was I would say mind-blowing, because I've seen production before, like in person, but seeing how they do their production online and provide that value that they do, and I was able to get a sneak peek of it, I think it's incredible. So there was that. So I'm sitting here preparing for it, trying to figure out, okay, so, you know, when they ask about this question, you know, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? Right. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to address it this way. And I think that I had the room to like express myself the way I wanted to, but I'm also aware of like the timing of everything. Right. So I know that I didn't want to be too long-winded, and I wanted to get the exact thoughts that I wanted to get out for the topic at hand. And I think that and what sometimes we fail to understand, we, as in anybody who listens to podcasts, including me, or who watch like any video content, the listener and the viewer knows if you're just throwing like manure and hoping that it's going to stick, right? The listener knows that, and the viewer knows that. So now the delusion is when the host believes that the listener doesn't know anything about them, when the listener spends a lot of time either listening to their content or watching their content. That's the delusion of the host, if there is one, right? But the listener knows, the viewer knows if the person that they're watching knows what they're talking about, even if they're watching the person for the first time or not, right? So I think that, so balancing that out, so I'm sitting here like, okay, okay, I'm gonna look at these topics. I'm gonna read a little bit about it. I may bring some stats, right? So I was considering bringing some stats and stuff. And I think one of the stats that I was thinking about and I brought was when we were talking about the Steam stuff, right? So we know that Steam has big market share right now, right? And I said something between 73 to 75%, which was pretty accurate, but it wasn't like totally accurate. And here's what I mean by that, right? So 73 to 75%, right? And there's a difference of percentages in there, right? 75 is probably more accurate. 73 to 75 gives me a cushion where the other host can buy in to the conversation, right? So it's all to me, a lot of it, because I love psychology. It's all psychology. If I gave an exact number, then it would be like, well, where are you getting this number from, right? Of course, I had the article where I got the number from. That's not even, the thing. But the thing is, like, when you're having certain conversations like that, with the flow of buy-in for the other individuals that you're having a conversation with, you want to not necessarily be too generic, but too static in the information. People will respect that, but people will want to lean in to hear a little bit more about what's going on, because you're really trying to navigate the conversation, not, hey, I have all the answers, right? But I want to have information during this conversation that we can all kind of like dissect together, right? So I think a lot of it was that for me, as I was thinking about how I was going to approach the topics, even with the so I think we talked about the Steam stuff, right? And I brought the stats, and I think one of the things that I said, which was an approximate, which was intentional with the approximation, right? I said between 2018 and 2019, Steam published 16,000 games, right? That's what I said. And that is that's pretty accurate, but that's an approximation, because if you look at the numbers for 2018 and 2019 for Steam, that's posted online on different websites and stuff like that, the exact number that I gave at one point was, I think I said 8,290, right? And I think that specific number was, from what I recall, I'm trying to look at the picture in my mind, 2019, okay? And 2018 was a little bit lower than 2019, right? So I'm giving this information as we're talking about it on the Xcast, Kinda Funny Xcast, because I wanted the information to be approximate enough so my other host at that time, which was Paris and Gary Whitta, that they would buy into the information and listen in and not necessarily check out. Now, why am I saying that? Because when you watch a lot of shows, if the person that's speaking believes they have all the information and the other host thinks that they're off, their visual disposition will tell you that they're not necessarily interested in what the person is currently saying, right? So, and I think that's where my brain goes when it comes to navigating different conversations. Now, I think there was one point where we were talking, and I kind of gave a little what may be considered a little pushback, right? Because my stance on owning your games, which we can kind of like have the conversation about if you really do own it or not own it, is you actually have the game and you own it, not necessarily renting it from a service. And I kind of asked Gary Whitta the question, like, hey, is it misleading to say that we actually own the games when we're renting them, right? That was a little bit pushback. And then he gave his reply on it. And then after he gave his reply, I think I kind of, not necessarily, I don't know if you would consider a rebuttal, but I kind of asked a second question on top of that, right? To get a little bit more clarification from where he stood. Now, I debated if I was going to do that when he was talking. So I'm like, I'm like, I want to ask him, but I don't want to. So I'm like, shit, I don't know. So I'm sitting here like, playing it out in my brain. Like, do I want to ask him? Do I want to? Because that's the first interaction that I ever had with Gary Whitta. Very first time. I've never had any other conversations with him. At all. Zero. Okay, so I've heard the Xcast enough to know what to expect, what the vibe would be, right? Definitely prepared for that. But considering doing a pushback during the recording of the show, I kind of wrestled with that a little bit because I'm like, should I ask him that? Is it too much? Is it too much of a pushback? So I'm kind of like working through that. Then I ask him the question and he answers it. And then I think I said something to the effect. So this is like a replay for me based on what happened this week on Xcast. Then I said something like, thank you for taking the time to do that. And I needed to kind of like release that tension because I didn't want that tension to be there. Whether the tension was there for me or it was there for him. Because I've heard him like riff on many topics. He's very knowledgeable, great at everything that he does. So one of the things that I didn't want to do is do too much of a pushback that lingered into the following topics. Everything, all that stuff for me is psychological, right? And I think it all, which is what I was saying before when I was introducing myself at the top of the show for Xcast episode 39 was I love human behavior. And so the umbrella of consumer behavior is just perfect for me because I love that stuff, right? I love to see how people are going to react to certain things. I kind of think about it a little bit ahead of time to figure out if it's the best move or not. Now, even in my current relationships, my family, right? So I do the same thing. Is a joke a right joke right now to do that? Maybe it's not. Should there tension be there or no tension, right? So I even do that in my personal life, right? So navigating how the conversation is going during Xcast, I'm like, all right. So I see where this is going. I see what's happening here. So let me. I think it's time, right? So then I do the pushback. I listen to what he has to say, right? Gary, what I listen to what Gary has to say. And then from that, I kind of gave a little interjection again from there. And then I thanked them for expanding on the thought of, do we really own our games if we're renting them? And the reason I brought that question up is because I think it was Major Nelson and the panel of Bethesda. I think Major Nelson was there during the panel of Bethesda like a while ago when they were really beginning to promote that this was going to be a thing. I don't remember who said it, but towards the end of that particular broadcast, it was said that, hey, I have all these games, I own them. And I kind of understand what they mean by that. But I think it could be misleading, which is, and I gave the same pushback when I heard it on the Xbox broadcast that Major Nelson did with the Bethesda panel. Same pushback, right? Because if I have Halo Master Chief Collection on Xbox right now, physical, right? And I have the digital now, so now I have two copies of the game, right? Because I recently bought the one that was on sale on the 12th of April, as I mentioned on the Xcast, right? So now I have two copies of it. Now, now the struggle right now is if I give my physical copy of Halo Master Chief Collection to the library can reuse it over and over by letting other individuals rent it once I give it to the library. I much rather give it to the library than give it to GameStop, because it's like if I give it to GameStop, then I mean, it may sit there, it may not, right? And the value for me means more if I give it to the library where I know individuals will be renting it and then bringing it back, that kind of thing. That means more to me than trying to get a sale for it at a GameStop or stores like that. So Kinda Funny Xcast, the episode 39, I think was fantastic. Now, I'm just gonna say this here, I guess just to hear myself say it. I would love to do more stuff like that because it challenges me to really think about the things that I'm saying and the things that I'm putting out there on the internet. And I think that one of the things that it did for me was really think about what I'm actually saying on, whether it's on my podcast or if it's a video show that we put out and stuff like that for the show radio. But I would definitely love to do like more hosting conversations like that because I learned a lot. And not only that, but just the optics of it post, right? So we recorded the show. It's posted, right? It posted today at 9 a.m., right? On the Kinda Funny YouTube channel. And of course, then you get a new audience that's going to decide if they like you or not, right? There's that. Now, am I concerned about that? I think everybody is to some degree, right? You want to do the best job possible when it comes to that stuff. So other things that I'm thinking about, even in that regard, they told me to show up at a particular time. I wasn't there on that time. I was there before that time. So opportunities like that, or any opportunity, you don't want to be late for, right? So I'm sitting here like, okay, so it's time to prepare. I think I've prepared as much as I need to prepare. Now it's time to go on. Now it's time to get, connected to the group, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm there early, right? So next time, if an invitation like that is extended, they say, oh yeah, well, last time he was there, no problem, early. So we know that's dependable, right? And I think so everything for me in that particular experience was first impression everything, right? I have a great relationship with Paris. Known him for a long time. It's my brother, that's my friend. I know we were there to focus on the topics at hand. I was prepared for that. I wanted to kind of like do some jokes with him and stuff like that, but that wasn't the time to do that. And that's another thing too. When it comes to certain hosting opportunities or any opportunity that happens, I'm just reflecting for myself, right? That you don't want, I didn't want to derail anything. And that was his first hosting time for Xcast. I know he's a regular standing host there, but I think that was the first time he was hosting Xcast, and that was my first time being there, right? So a lot of things I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to derail anything for him, right? If I have any jokes or anything like that, I can do it after because, I know he has to prepare, he has to carry the pockets and some of the nuance that's happening in the conversation. So I didn't want to disrupt that flow that he had prepared for, right? So a lot of it too is discretion. So I'm sitting here, navigating like, how we're supposed to have this conversation and make everything flow. So it was stressful. It was fun, but it was stressful at the same time. So, but definitely, I'm grateful for the opportunity to even speak on such an incredible and large platform. To me, it's like if you want to equate it to anything, it's like the ESPN for the gaming industry, right? It's a huge platform. No one's denying that. And I was able to have a moment there, and I'm forever grateful for that.